Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting, coming to you today with another episode of Spirituality and Me. In this episode, we're going to be talking about and discussing the understandings around seeking and knowing. And these are some understandings that and revelations that I've had based upon trying to understand life, the universe, God, all of this. And it's sort of, it's an exciting sort of topic, and where I sort of gain my basically inspiration from this is from talks by Sadhguru Alan Watts. And it's based around understanding sort of like Hindu views and yogic views on the world, the universe, life, and also Zen and Buddhist understandings. And it comes to be around like this core understanding that I've had that we know nothing in life. And a funny thing is that just personally today, I was listening to a talk or a lecture by Alan Watts where he was talking on, really on that, what I'm saying, what we say when we're communicating doesn't actually mean anything. Even though internally I feel like what I talk about or what I want to talk about or what I want to communicate to other people is of the most important meaning, in the world, because to me, in my ego, it sort of, like, how I put it is like this, like the ego seems to want to think that I know everything, what I know is true, and sort of what I say is important. And it's a funny thing because when I realize that no matter what I say, it is irrelevantly like meaningless. Because even if, for example, I'm sharing information upon, like, to you about my understandings of the universe, my understandings of life, my understandings of God. And these are core understandings that have given me so much internal power and internal, belief and stuff like that. It's sort of like, it's sort of irrelevant, because even if I know, for example, how to talk to God, and I talk to God and I pray to God, and I pray to the universe, and I pray to the life around me, and I'm in communication with them, I don't understand or know exactly anything. Okay? So it's sort of like I was sitting by the beach today watching the waves and the ocean, and it's like, when I look at the ocean, right, I like my ego likes to think I understand what I'm seeing and I know everything about what I'm seeing. But when I look at the ocean, I don't actually understand anything about the ocean. And no one does. Because to understand, I must know everything. So, for example, the realization I had while looking and watching the waves break is that I have zero understanding or ability, even if I watch the waves for 10 hours or, however long, that I do not understand how and when the waves are going to break and where they're going to break. And this is a key understanding I had, is that, like, to understand and to say, I know how the waves work, I know the ocean, right? Like, I would have to be able to predict exactly the point where the wave is going to break, when the wave is going to break, and how the wave is going to break to truly know it. And that's a funny thing that Alan Watts and Sadhguru talk about in their talks and lectures is, for example, Sadhguru says, like, we know nothing in life. Like, we don't even understand or comprehend to the full complexity of a single blade of grass. And I was thinking about this while looking, at sort of like a field of grass. And it's like, for me to say I understand like this field of grass would mean that I would have to be able to tell you every blade of grass that is there, how many blades of grass that are there, what, not so much what the type of grass is, but where that grass came from, how that grass grew. Like, we don't understand how the grass grows. Because if we understood how the grass grows, we would be able to artificially recreate it. And this is what Sadhguru talks about, is that, like, he has a saying where he says, I am an illiterate man who knows nothing. And I was pondering this and sort of realizing that, like, when I look at a field of grass, like, I am seeing a superficial image, but I don't actually know anything about it, because, like, what I realized was to know is, like, to know in truth means that it can never change. And life doesn't work like that. Life is in a constant state of flow, like water. So, for example, a wave breaking on the beach doesn't know the point where it will end. It just breaks and then ends and comes back. But it's not like the wave knows exactly where it will end. It sort of just flows until there is no more momentum or water or flow, and then it goes back down. And this is so true in every aspect of life. For example, I was thinking of my own experiences and understandings in sales, that to say I know sales in terms of, like, I understand sales is to say I understand every aspect of sales and know every possibility of sales, which is not true. Because, like, true knowing and true truth does not exist, because it's forever changing and forever sort of, new things are coming up, new experiences, new situations. Like, no one, and this is my realization, that no one actually knows anything in life, yet everyone pretends to know everything. In the context of how our ego works, is when I'm walking down a road, my ego tells me I understand everything around me that I see, but I'm only seeing such a small portion of it. Like, that's the funny thing in life, is that we play this game with ourselves where our ego tells us that what we say and what we know is truth and important, but truth and meaning and importance doesn't actually exist. It's all a figment of our imagination to sort of give us self-imposed sort of like this meaning or overarching belief or purpose or however you wish to describe it. So it's like nothing in life can I ever truly know, because to know it means that what I know of it never changes. And think about this in your own life, because I was realizing every time take, for example, sales. I would say that I understand and know sales. I have now just said, this is all sales is. What I know is the entirety of sales. And that's a funny thing, because I was sort of thinking about it in terms of, I was listening to a talk from Alan Watts around, Zen and basically yes or no, because essentially, things are either on or off in our context of, if they're on, that's a yes. If they're off, it means no, and all of this and how our brain works. And it's sort of like, it sort of stumped me, because like I came to the realization that I actually don't know anything in life for certain, because the point of life isn't to actually know. Now, when I say the point of life isn't to know, I have no idea. Like, that's the thing. I know nothing. And it's sort of like, as I was working through this understanding and sort of trying to sort of grasp what Alan Watts was saying, grasp the meaning of his words, even though he says himself the words he say are meaningless, because like we don't actually even know, like I don't know myself in entirety. Like I can sort of say I understand myself, my psychology, my biology, my experience, but it's like everything I have yet to experience, I have no idea of. So what I know is only such a small portion of what is the entirety of life. And it got me to thinking, just in terms of like my own spirituality and, God and things like that. And it's like, I was having a conversation with God and sort of trying to understand, and like, it was like, to understand God is to understand every aspect of God in existence. And that is an impossible feat, because we cannot understand everything. Like it's impossible, because life is not static. And when we try to say, I understand something, we're trying to take something that is in motion and say that it is static. And that's a funny thing, because so much in my life, when I think or feel like I know something, essentially I am trying to take it from being an ever-evolving, ever-changing, ever-in-motion thing, and I'm trying to make it static. And it's so strange, because like it's very uncomfortable, the realization that like even walking, I don't actually know how to walk, because like it's not something that is static. So much of, if you think to education and schooling, it's sort of like, if I know what 2 + 2 is, and 2 + 2 is 4, that means 2 + 2 can never be anything but 4. But, like for example, Alan Watts says, if I add 2 drops of water to 2 drops of water, does that equal 4 drops of water? No. That equals 1 bigger or larger drop of water. So like, does it make sense? So it's like, We set these restrictions and limitations in our own life where we're trying to know truth, know what something is, but it's an impossible feat because we can never know. Because as soon as I think that I know something, if I see new information, that changes it. And this got me thinking over to, science and scientists who explore, mathematics, they explore physics, they explore, quantum physics, they explore string theory and theoretical physics. And it's sort of like our ego wants to say that if I observe, say, the stars in astrophysics, I understand the stars. But in truth, the more I understand about something, the less I know. And the more I know about something, the less I understand it, because of the sheer amount or gravity of how much information is out there to know. And it's very funny because this realization and sensation came over me that once I stopped trying to know, then I really truly started to appreciate it for what it is. So if I look at, for example, a field of grass, and I do not understand or know even what grass is, that grass becomes magical. It becomes new. It's not just grass, but now it is something that is ever evolving, ever changing. And yes, our ego would want to say, but it's just grass. We know what grass is. But that's not the point, because we truly don't know. Because if we knew, we would be able to replicate, we would be able to recreate. We would be able to create grass from nothing, as how evolution created grass from nothing. Because everything started as a single cell organism and grew out from there. And then it's like, where did a single cell organism come from? Do you sort of get it? Like the universe, God, life, created life from nothing or from something. We don't fully understand at the moment exactly how it happened, because if we did, then we would be able to recreate and create life from nothing. Does it make sense? So it's like, when I was thinking about this in terms of, and pondering it in terms of like my own personal, wanting to believe that, I understand business and know business, I know sales and all of these different sort of business things, it was like, I don't actually really know, but no one actually really knows. And many people will argue, I've been doing marketing for 20 years, I know marketing, but it's like, as soon as you say that, you have cut off all possibilities of marketing evolving and changing in the future. Because there's, you know what I mean? Because if you know everything, that is the entirety of it. And that's sort of how I was approaching life, was I was trying to understand, life, the universe, and God in its entirety. But like every time I would try and define it and say, this is what it is, well, one, I actually don't know, for certain at 1,000% that it will never change. But it also, I realize that's not the point, because the point isn't to try and confine things so that they don't change. But think about it in your own life. How many people do this, where we're trying to confine things so that they don't change because it's comfortable, because it's secure, because it's safe? You know what I mean? It's sort of like why we build cities, and we build cities the way that we build them is sort of, segregated from nature so that they're not affected and influenced by nature. Because if I had a skyscraper, with trees all around it, well, the tree roots are going to go under the ground and affect the foundation. So I don't want them there because they're going to create, continual change and things like that. But just to the same way, I want to control the water flow so that, there's no flooding, and so that water drains easily so it doesn't degrade and damage the building. So it's sort of like in our search of trying to control every aspect of life in our external environment, we're trying to disjoint our idea of society from our idea of nature, because nature's ever growing, ever flowing, ever changing, and sort of, trees are growing and then trees are falling down and dying and things like that. Wildfires come through, strong storms come through and affect it, and it's sort of like this is life. Life is ever flowing. Life is ever changing. The point isn't to try and define it as I know, but it's more to, and this was the realization I had, is it's more to seek. Because when I'm seeking to understand grass, or understand my environment, or even understand sales, I'm open to every possibility. I'm acceptant of any change. And it's a funny thing, because for so much of my life, I've had the two mixed up, where I thought seeking was a path to knowing, but I now understand that knowing is a path to seeking. Because once I try and know, I realize I don't actually know and I don't understand, so I must seek for more information. But it is an impossibility for me to know all information. It's like, for example, if we take, quantum physics, like to know all of quantum physics is to simultaneously observe the entirety of the universe in one instant. Like, that is impossible. Nothing, not nothing, but nothing we can ever think of right at this point in time could ever comprehend or even extrapolate that amount of data, or even, have the sensory input to be able to observe that amount of data. And it's so funny because while I was pondering this, I sort of started to realize in it, and it gives you this sense of joy that everything is new. Like, for example, every day my body is creating new cells. It's creating a new me. Cells are dying and decaying, and then new cells are being created. That's sort of how we grow and we age. And it's like, once I sort of started to realize this, and then I let go to the need to understand in its entirety, I'm able to appreciate it for what it is, even though I don't understand, what it is. So it's sort of like, if I don't know what sales is, I'm able to observe and appreciate every aspect of sales. But if I try and say I know what sales is, anything different to what my belief on what it is wrong. And it's a funny thing, because we think about this in terms of religion, like, and religious practices and religious dogma is like, and canon is like, the Christians say that the Bible is God's will and word and testament. The Muslims say that the Quran is, God, Allah's will and testament, and the truth and life in entirety. And it's so funny, because then we become restricted to, my experience of life can only be through the Bible, can only be through, the Quran. In the context of, like, if I believe in the Bible 100% as being 100% factual and truth, then that means that God made the universe in 7 days. And it's like, you know what I mean? Who could ever know that? Like, we don't even know what the entirety of the universe looks like. Like, I've never personally seen a depiction or a picture of the entirety of the universe. Like, I barely understand the universe even outside of our galaxy. I don't even understand our galaxy, because there's something like, I think it's 10 billion, like, solar systems in our galaxy or something like that. Like, it's an immense number. And it's sort of like, if we take another analogy of sitting at the beach and I look along the beach, it's like me saying I know every grain of sand. But I don't understand, like, when I look down the beach, how deep the sand goes. So how could I ever know every grain of sand? It's sort of like, if there's clouds in the sky and I say, I know it's going to rain. Well, in saying I know it's going to rain, well, to truly know it in the context of what we understand as knowing every part of it, every aspect of it, well, then I would have to know exactly the moment it's going to rain, exactly the location where it's going to rain, and exactly the location where each of the raindrops are going to land, how many raindrops are going to come out. Like, it's so liberating, because now I don't even understand the rain. And it's so beautiful, because it's through this realization that we lose connection to our ego and sort of drop the masquerade of our ego, which wants to say we know and understand everything. Which is very, very funny, because it's sort of like, after I was sitting there and pondering this and sort of coming to this realization, everything around me sort of became magical. It's sort of like seeing in color for the first time, because I don't actually know what anything I am looking at is. Do you understand? Like, everything is new to me. And it's funny, because this is a sort of a form of meditation where we're sort of, because essentially meditation, what we're trying to do is let go of the ego and our conscious awareness and sort of become present in the moment. And through realizing I actually don't know anything in terms of, I don't know anything in its entirety, just like I do not know myself in my own entirety, because I do not know every cell in my body. It's a liberation, because then I'm not going through trying to define and sort of create everything into a static world that's forever moving and forever changing. And it sort of liberates me to being able to now try and be in the flow of life, in the flow of what it means to be alive. What does it mean to, be with God, our understanding of God? If I do not know or understand God, now every little aspect of God is brand new to me. And it's this really exciting feeling and sensation that you get, is that, like, I am a part of everything and not disjointed from it. I am not in control of anything. Because when I'm trying to be in control of everything, it's very stressful. It's very, scary in the context of, like, there's so much unknown in life. And it's sort of when I realized to let go of that desire to claim that I know, I am now liberated to experience everything that I do not know. And this is sort of the difference between knowing and seeking, is that in seeking, I understand that I only know what I have experienced, but I don't even know what I have experienced in its entirety, which is so liberating, because now the pressure, well, is off me to be the one in charge. Now I am able to experience everything around me as if I am experiencing it for the first time. And Sadhguru talks about this and uses an analogy of walking blindfolded through the forest. If you walk blindfolded through the forest and cannot see, every step you have to do with maximum attention, like an intention. Whereas when I see where I'm walking, I tend to just walk without observing or seeing anything around me. Because I've said that these are the trees, these are the grass, this is the dirt path, these are the birds, these are the insects. I know everything. But when I know nothing, every step is a mystery. And it's through this experience that I'm really able to sort of let go of my ego. For example, in all that I'm telling you now, I do not know. Like, so in that, I have lost my ego, because my ego wants to know, wants to claim I know everything. If I know what 2 plus 2 is, my ego wants to say that it is 4. If I do not know what 2 plus 2 is, my ego is no more. Because, like, my ego cannot exist outside of knowing. Because once I do not know something, now I am simply observing everything. And observing is different to my ego. When I'm observing from my subconscious mind. You know, when I'm in my ego, I'm in my conscious mind of this means this, that means that. You know, I know that, for example, you know, my ego wants to say, if I'm walking down a dirt path and there's rocks, my ego wants to say, I know they're going to hurt if I step on them. But if I do not know they're going to hurt if I step on them, then the possibility is open that they won't hurt if I step on them. And it's so funny, just in my own experience in life, that, you know, that's how I've always been, trying to know everything, trying to define everything. And it's like trying to know and define, I can do within myself. For example, I can know what a rock will feel like when I stand on it. But it's like, if I try and explain what it's going to feel like to you, it's very, very difficult to try and use language to explain it. I can say it will hurt, I can say it will be sharp, I can say it will be hard, but I can't actually describe what it will feel like to you. And that's a funny thing, because it's like, for me, this is one of my goals, is to be able to describe the undescribable, or to attempt to describe the undescribable, so that you can know like I know. But it's impossible, because I don't understand or even know how I know. Does that make sense? Oh, a little mosquito. But it's sort of like, when I let go of needing to know, then I'm able to describe, you know, with this understanding that I don't actually know. And it's very, very funny, because the more I've come to understand about life, in terms of, you know, everything about life and spirituality and like the universe and all that, is that everything is a contradiction. For me to be alive, I must also be dead, because it's not one or the other. Like, I cannot be alive if I am not going to die. Like, the ego would want to say that, yes, you could be alive if you weren't going to die, but the ego is just trying to describe something that it doesn't actually truly know. And it's acting as if it truly knows what it is describing, when in fact, for it to know, I would have to know everything about what it means to be alive and what it means to die. And that's like an impossible task, because essentially, in the moment that I explain it, I would have to simultaneously know all. Like, and I don't even think a quantum computer could do that. Like, I don't even think the most advanced technology that we haven't even created could do that. Because we're talking about, like, on the smallest end, trillions of simultaneous computations, but on the biggest end, like, I don't even know the word that would describe it because it is that large. It's like if we tried to count every star in the universe, I don't think we would have a number in existence that could ever describe it. But then also, in every moment throughout time and life in the universe, some stars are dying and some stars are being reborn. So it's like if I try and say there's, 780 trillion stars or whatever the number is, like as soon as I've said that, it might drop 5% or increase 5%. Like it's not static. And that's sort of the realization and enlightenment I had, is that every time I tried to say I know something or I know what something is, but new can exist or new can come into existence and old can cease to be. So like if I say this is what it is, as soon as I've said that, it has changed. So as soon as I say, the wave will break in a specific place, like, you know what I mean? It won't break in that exact place. Because, like, the smaller we get in terms of the more we try and define and the more we sort of refine and niche and focus our prediction. So like, for example, I could say the wave will break in a 10-meter radius and I would be quite accurate. But when I get down to the millimeters, like, it becomes impossible, because where does the break start and where does the break end? Like, who knows? So it's like, for example, I can't even describe it. Like, it is so difficult when you try and actually describe something truthfully. Ooh, got that little fella. Truthfully, because it's like my truth is based on what I know and understand. But what I'm trying to know and understand is forever evolving and changing. So like when I'm saying, this is what it is and that is what it's not, like as soon as I say that, I am wrong because it has changed and evolved. And that's a funny realization I had, because then when observing people, I came to the realization that that is all we do, in business, in life, in relationships, in education, in whatever it may be, whatever aspect of life it may be, is that we're all going around trying to say, I know exactly what it is. But in the instant that we say that, it has changed. That's the duality of life. And sort of like the, not hypocrisy, but it's sort of like, as soon as I try and say, for example, like, I am alive, like, alive doesn't exist unless there's a dead. Like, alive would not be alive if there was no death. Just like there would be no light if there was no darkness. Does it sort of make sense? There would be no colour if there wasn't contrast between colours. If the world was made out of only white and everything in existence was only white, nothing would exist because I wouldn't be able to define anything. So the realization to this extent is that happiness cannot exist without misery, without sadness, without unhappiness. Success cannot exist without failure. If I do not fail, I can never succeed. Because if there was no failure, well, there would be nothing to succeed at. It just would be. Does that make sense? And it's like, in trying to understand life and just my own self, this is so powerful because it's sort of like, you know, I would seek to always be happy. But if I'm always happy, happiness doesn't exist. Like, I just am. Because I need something to counteract that happiness, to give a contrasting, I need the downs in life so that there are ups. Just like I need ups in life so that there are downs. Because if life was only up wouldn't exist. Like, it would just be. And it's a really, really interesting thing because, like, if we take business, for example, we're all seeking in business to succeed. But if there is only success, it ceases to be. And it's sort of like, if you've ever met people who are highly codependent, where they're sort of like people pleasers, where they're seeking to always make all those around them happy, it's sort of like we don't, respect or see those people as being valuable people because they're constantly trying to always make everyone happy, so their uniqueness or their personality is sort of non-existent because they're always trying to be who other people want them to be. And it's a very interesting thing because it's sort of like, we all in life seek to be unique, but it's like, unless we're willing to be that contrast between like and dislike, so liked by some and disliked by others, we're never going to be unique. If we're only ever liked, we would cease to be. Does that sort of make sense? So if we think about this in business terms, if I create a business and the content I create is to appease everyone, I cease to be recognizable because, like, my uniqueness doesn't exist. In the context of I have no boundaries in terms of I'm only trying to get people to like me, So there's nothing in me that people can like. Does that make sense? So it's like, yeah, it's sort of like in life, we have to become okay with not knowing, with accepting we know nothing. And that's actually the beauty of life, because as soon as I do not know what an ant is, in terms of I don't know what an ant is feeling, I don't know what an ant is thinking, I don't know what the intention of the ant's movement is, I don't know what the purpose is driving that ant. Do you sort of understand? So now the movements of that ant become like sacred and special and like new, because I'm just watching that ant move around and explore his environment without understanding why or how or what he is doing. And it's like, this is the special of life. This is what makes life special, is when we're able to come out of the ego that's trying to say, I know everything, so I don't need to put any attention into anything, to now, I don't know anything, so I must be fully attentive into everything, into my external environment, into my understanding or wanting or seeking to understand God, into my understanding or wanting or seeking to understand the universe or life or business or other people. When I look at someone through my ego and I say, I know what that person is or who that person is, I cease to look, and I only superficially look. And think about it like this. In your own life, when you walk down the street, what does our ego do? It categorizes and defines people based on superficial, like on superficial characteristics, and then sort of says, I know that person. When in fact, I don't even know me in entirety, so how could I ever know another? It's a strange thing, because when we're able to sort of experience this, it brings back the newness of life, to where if I walk down the street and I do not know other people, every person is unique to me. Every person is, beautiful in their own way, in terms of like, I'm seeing them for the first time. And it's like, it's through this perspective shift of dropping the ego that we sort of become that higher consciousness, or that sort of authentic consciousness, where we're not trying to define everything, and now we're just observing everything with attention. If I do not know a blade of grass, when I look at a blade of grass, I will look with more intention and focus than if I say I know a blade of grass. And this is what makes life so special. This is what adds that mystery and that excitement to life, is that, for example, if I do not know an ant and I'm watching an ant, everything is new. Everything is exciting. His movements I cannot predict. And it's like, we now take the smallest mundane activity and we've added newness. We've added, specialness. We've added the spice of life to it. And it's so funny, but it's impossible for me to explain. Like, I will never be able to explain it in the context that you will understand it. But the purpose isn't that you understand it. Because to understand it, you must understand everything about it. And I don't understand everything about it, so I could never explain it in a way. Like I could never explain everything about it. And it's funny because after I had this realization and sort of did this practice where I was sort of understanding and realizing that I don't actually know anything in life to its entirety, it's sort of like walking slower became more exciting. Everything is new. Everything is sort of exciting to view, to look at. Like, there's this majestic, like, magicalness to the world now. And it's like, this is what a lot of us seek in life, is to be able to pull ourselves out of that ego and put ourselves into the present, where we're able to observe and appreciate everything around us as if it is one a part of us, but also as it is. Because you think about it, like, even if we take a blade of grass, like a blade of grass, like, is so complexly beautiful in its color, in its shape, in its vibrancy, that it's sort of like, if we take the time to appreciate it, it becomes easier for us to appreciate our life and the experience we're having in life. And it's sort of like, it just makes every little thing around so much more important to me than if I'm looking at things as if I know them, because I don't need to look with much intention or effort or focus. And this is sort of, for me, a way that I've found to sort of pull myself back into the present moment and sort of appreciate everything in life. Because when I do not understand anything in life to its entirety, all my problems disappear. How can I have problems if I don't even understand what is around me? And that's a funny thing. The more I would try and know and define things, the more problems I would have, because the more time or the more energy I gave to my brain to think about things that had happened to me or things that were going on. Whereas if I'm walking through life with a wonder and amazement about everything around me in life, I don't really have the time to worry about things that are happening to me in life. And it's sort of very, very special to me. But it allows me to sort of experience life, sort of how I envision life to be experienced. Because it's very boring to hike through a path where I know everything that is around me. Because there's no need to look at what I already know. Whereas if I don't know anything around me, everything is new to me. Something to be wondered, amazed at, something to learn about. And it's a very, very beautiful thing, because it's sort of like a way that I'm able to, calm myself and, lower any anxiety that I may have about situations or events happening to me. But it's also a way that I'm able to drop that ego which traps me in the stresses of life. If I know everything there is to know about sales, if I say one thing and it's wrong, like I'm an idiot. If I know nothing about sales, do you really think it's, a big problem if I say the wrong thing? And you think about it in your own life, we're all going through life, and there's this urge or this need to be perfect at everything, to not make mistakes, to not fail. And I realized that was because my ego was telling me that it knew what things were. But once I realized that I don't actually know anything, I'm liberated to do, to explore. Like, if I don't know anything about sales, in terms of, I don't know sales in its entirety, every sales call is new, is exciting. Every person I speak to is a new experience. If I know sales, every person I speak to should be a new sale, because I'm an expert in sales. Do you sort of see how it shifts sort of the narrative that we make, but also the pressure we put on ourselves to be good, to be perfect, to not look like a fool? If I know nothing in life, do you not think that I should be a fool in life? Like, it's okay if I make mistakes. Whereas if I go around and I tell you that I know everything, every time I'm wrong, you would say you're wrong, you're a fool. Why would you say you know everything? And that's the beauty of it, is it's the stress-free way to live, because the only person that puts stress on us is us. So when I say I'm an expert at sales, like, I'm putting that stress on me, that if I don't act, perform, and get the results that an expert would, then I'm lying to myself. Whereas if I don't know anything about sales, any and every result I get is a good result, but every experience that I have and interaction I have is a new and exciting experience. Every person I talk to has something new to tell me. I haven't heard it all before. And it's sort of like, like there is a reason our ego tries to say we know everything, in terms of, like, if I'm doing sales, like, I want to know how to do it, so that I can do it. But it's sort of like the ego wants to see things in absolute. And when we're able to pull back from the absolute to, I know a bit in sales, but I don't know everything, that's the shift. Do you get it? Like, no matter how much I know, I will never know everything because I can never experience everything. Because everything is forever changing and forever evolving. So it's sort of like, it's a really good way that we're able to personally perform at a higher level, because now if I don't know everything about sales, every sales call I do, I must invest time and attention so that I can do it right, or, do it to the best of my abilities. But it's also like everything is a new experience. So every action becomes exciting. Just to the same, if I do not know my external environment, every sort of tree or, environment that I'm walking through is a new experience to be explored. And that's a pretty exciting thing. Alright, well, I hope this helps and you got a bit of information out of this, and have an amazing day. Thanks so much. Bye.